What's good, YouTube? I'm back with another Monster Kody read, and man, let's get into it. I ain't even hold y'all up. Part 9. The next night, when Gangsta Brown and I were transversing to a party in the hood, an undercover car pulled to a stop beside us. Both police officers exited the car and approached us. "Monster, what's up?" said the first officer, with a fake appearance of friendship. "Nothing," I said, with as much deceiving concern as I could muster. "Actually, nothing, but hostility exists between us and them, but some officers try to put on a jovial show of cosmetic concern to woo the naive banger into trusting relationship with them." "Listen," officer continued, "Auto Detail wants to talk to you about a stolen car. Now I know that ain't your style. I told him that, but you need to come on down to the situation and iron it out." My instinct said run, but I didn't. I said, "Man, you know I don't be stealing cars. That's bullshit." "Yeah, we know, but it's best if you clear this up now." His partner had now joined in on the friendly persuasion. I looked at Brown to see what he thought. "Don't worry, Brown," the first officer said. "We'll bring Monster right back to the party." This don't even sound realistic. Still, Brown said nothing. By now, I was being handcuffed. I told Brown that I'll see him later and to hold down the party until I got back. He said he would. After we drove off, the jovial facade vanished. "Monster Kody," the driver said, as if weighing the pondage of my name. "You're in big trouble." Damn, I felt claustrophobic, trapped, helpless. "You cannot keep going around killing people and leaving witnesses." He was shooting stares at me through the rearview mirror as he spoke. "Now we got you. You done fucked up this time." "Yep, got an eyewitness who saw you plain as day." "But listen," he continued, "what's been eating away at me is this. Was that you driving that burgundy Grand Piece that shot up Lip Dog from Brim?" So y'all want him to snitch on himself, which we chased and lost? His eyes held me at mine for a moment. "Nah, that wasn't me." "Oh, you can tell us. We don't give a fuck one way or another. I just wanted to compliment you on your driving." Now he broke the fake smile. Incidentally, Lip Dog survived those 4 holes you put in his chest." "I told you, man, that wasn't me." "Well, listen, H-Rat said he saw you kill his homeboy DC last night." He was speaking now in a matter-of-fact tone. "We wouldn't even bother with it if he hadn't positively ID'd you." Damn, that nigga snitching. But he continued, "H-Rat ain't gonna be no good witness, no way. He'll shoot his own brother today." With that, he winked in the rearview mirror. Now I was really wondering just what was going on. How had anyone seen me under the cover of darkness? Or better yet, had anyone actually seen me? And if so, why hadn't there been mention of the others who had been shot? I distinctly remembering counting 5 people out there. He be playing old shootouts in his head, old drills. He crazy, dog. For 17 feet away with the sawed off, everyone was getting sprayed. Besides, they had been standing in a tight circle, and I had used 0-0 buckshot. Surely if I had some assault charges and perhaps attempted murder as well, but this went unmentioned during our ride to the station. At the station, I found out more. According to the homicide detectives handling the case, myself, Sidewinder, who had been captured, and the unidentified driver, caught several 60s on the corner of 67th and Van Ness and opened fire with a 9mm and a .22 rifle. I supposedly had possession of the .22 and had allegedly shot Delta Thomas, aka DC, several times. He was said to have run around a half a block and then expire. Sidewinder had supposedly supplied cover fire. I had been positively ID'd as the murderer of Delta Thomas. Of course, I know I had not shot DC, but how could I explain that I had been on the other side, possibly killing another? This nigga said, how can I explain that I had been at another site, possibly killing other 60? So this man got him on his own dilemmas, like what to do when you charged with murder, a murder you commit, but the chances are you was probably murdering somebody else. It's like, maybe I did commit this murder, but I committed so many others. Like, should I be fighting this? Like, That's like the hypocrisy of being a black gangster, bro. I had no alibi as to my whereabouts that night. I had no statement at the station other than I want to speak to my attorney. Man, my dog solid on game. I was asked a series of questions ranging from how old I was. Most of the policemen couldn't believe I was 16. To what my body count was. I shook them off with an ignorant stares and shoulder hunches. Later, after what seemed like hours in the cooling tank, a, del- a deliberately chilled holding cell designed to keep its occupants freezing and uncomfortable, I was transported to Los Padrinos Juvenile Hall. There I was stripped, searched, made shower, dressed in jail clothes, and escorted to the box. The box is actually solitary confinement, whereas those being held for murder, ones who sent for 7 was one being held on murder, one are to sent for 7 days. I was not sweating the case in the least. In fact, once I was put in my room, I went directly to sleep. But when I woke up the next morning, I felt the strain of being captured. Now I'm quite used to being trapped behind a heavy metal door or barricade or a barrage of bars. Even behind Pelican Bay's 8,200 holes, a metal slab over the entire front of my cell with multiple holes drilled in it. I can function quite normally. But back in those days, before my prison life conditioning, I had a hard time coping with cell living. In those days, my writing and reading were bad. I couldn't compose a decent letter and even read a whole comic book. I began to think about my schooling and my relationship with my mother, which had deteriorated to series of matched stares when we could even stand to be each other's company for a length of time. We couldn't even stand to be in each other's company for any length of time. Damn, that's your mama, bro. I felt she didn't understand my generation. She, on the other hand, said I was a no-good hoodlum. Our clashes were frequent. On my second day in solitary, she came to see me. I strolled out into the day room visiting area and sat next to her. For a few seconds, she said nothing. Then she looked straight into my eyes with the most puzzling look and spoke through quivering lips. Kody, what what has happened to you? What is wrong? And for the first time in a while, I started to shed tears and could not speak. Raising my head to her raising my head to her, honesty in my eyes, I said, I don't know. And I meant it. Yeah, bro, you done caught like 8 bodies. You crazy, gang. I don't know. You done spiraled out of control. You aspired to be this, though. My life was totally consumed by all aspects of gang life. I had turned my bedroom into a virtual command post, launching attacks from my house with escalating frequency. My clothes, my walk, talk, and attitude all reflected my love and allegiance to my set. Nobody was more important than my homeboys. Nobody. That's crazy. In fact, the only reason my little brother and I stayed close is because he joined the set. Anybody else, I had nothing in common with. My transformation was subtle. I guess this was why most parents can't nip it in the bud. How? I was six. I was 6 years old when the Crips were started. No one anticipated its sweep. The youth of South Central were being gobbled up by alien power, threatening to attach itself to a multitude of other problems already plaguing them. An almost enemy sculpture had arisen, and no one knew from where it came. I read Kody Book. It came from Tookie ass. No, not Raymond Rossington. I think Tookie founded the Crips. No one took its conception seriously, but so slowly it crept, staturing entire households, city blocks, neighborhoods, and eventually the nation state of California. Today, no school, library, institution, business, detention center, or church is exempt from being touched in some way by the gang activity in South Central. Per year, the gangs in South Central recruit more people than the 4 branches of U.S. Armed Forces do. Crack dealers employ more people in South Central than AT&T, IBM, Roxy combined, and South Central is under more aerial surveillance than Belfast, Ireland, Everyone is armed, frustrated, suppressed, and on the brink of explosion. I had no adequate answer for my mom about what was happening to me. Actually, I wasn't fully aware of the gang's strong gravitational pull. I knew, for instance, I know it's the hoes. It's all the admiration. It's all the, what they call it? Camaraderie. It's the camaraderie, bro. I know. It's tempting gang. I knew, for instance, that the total lawlessness was alluring. That shit definitely alluring. And the sense of importance, self-worth, and raw power was exciting, stimulating, and intoxicating beyond any other high on this planet. But still, I couldn't explain what happened to me. What happened to pull me in so far that nothing outside my set mattered. In the years since, I have battled with my intellect to find an adequate answer to that question. Not to justify my participation, but to see what makes others tick. I have always been a thinker, not necessarily academically, but more on a psychological level. I have always been interested in how people think, what causes any particular thought, and so on. Actions and reactions has always held my intentions. My attention. After mom left, I felt extremely bad, a bit torn. I was restless. The day seemed to drag on forever. On my third day in Los Padrinos, my name was called for release. When I got up front, this thing could beat all type of murder cases. When I got up front to the administration building, I found out my case had been rejected for prosecution by the district attorney's office. God damn, how many murders you gonna beat, G? Mom was there to pick me up. On my way home, she tried to make me commit to stop banging and get back to school. I told her I was in school, and she said angrily retorted, "To learn, damn it, to learn." The fact is, I was being bused to an all-American white school in Woodland Hills, El Camino real high, with some promises from moms and some stern commitments from my probation officer. I was able to get right out of juvenile camp. I went to school every day, but I never attended classes. Academics just couldn't hold my attention. The only reason I went at all because the long trip from South Central to San Fernando Valley, during which I was able to take in some awesome sights. Any relief from the drab grayness of the city was welcome, so I went along for the ride. Once there, I get with others who had no interest of academics, and we'll stand around and pose in our all cool South Southernness. The punk movement was in full swing at the time, and the Valley punk rockers initially mistook us. The 8 of us who were steeped in the sculpture of banging, for punk rockers because of our dress code. Oh, they mistook them for punk rockers because of their dress code. Okay. Perhaps they thought we were New African counterparts from the city. We dressed almost alike, but it was only coincidence. We had never seen or heard of punk rockers before coming out into the valley. A couple of us thought they were Crips. We circled one another in an attempt to distinguish authenticity. They finally made a pact and began to hang out together. But eventually I had to stop going to school there altogether because the 60s discovered my bus route, which ran through their hood. One day, they stood and taunted the bus. The next day, they shot it up. Damn, for Monster Kody. By the third day, I was not on that bus anymore. Now, as if all attempts would be useless, Mom gave up trying to persuade me. I know that feeling, man. Damn, she done threw in the towel. I mad dog every occupant of every car that came next to us, giving anyone a deliberately evil stare. I had perfected this look, and no one except other serious soldiers could hold my stare. I now understand the look. It's not how you stare at someone, but what you've been through that others can see in your eyes, and that tells them you're the wrong one to be fucking with. Yeah, because you done killed motherfuckers. You was the last thing some motherfuckers saw. Some refer to this as the 1,000-yard stare. Once I got home, showered, and geared up, my shaking mentality of the day before vanished. As I was back in country, in the war zone, and conditions dictated that I think in accord with my present situation. I called around to notify the homies of my release and my continued support of the participation in the war, which had just escalated to another level. Chris' sister had been kidnapped by the 60s from LA County Jail after she had gone to visit him. She was a civilian with no ties to gang activity other than her blood relations to Chris. So now kidnapping had been added to the list of tactics used to terrorize the other side and to withdraw. Back in 1980, unlike today, there was no high rollers or ballers subsequently anchored in any particular hood. High roller is a Crip terminology for a ghetto-rich drug dealer. Baller is the equivalent in blood language. So the kidnapping had nothing whatsoever to do with a ransom. This was a straight, ruthless move designed to strike terror in us. But of course, it didn't work. A meeting was held for a select few who it was determined could pull themselves a notch above the latest terrorist attack and commit an even more hideous act to show the 60s that two can play this game. Only our target would be not a civilian, but one of their troops. We plotted and planned most of the night trying to decide in which act would grab their attention. We pondered castration, blinding, sticking a shotgun up the victim's rectum and pulling a trigger and cutting off his ears. The latter we felt would be most significant. After all, killing him would be too easy, too final. No, we wanted him to live, to be a walking reminder of our seriousness. Castration is cutting a man's dick off. Y'all really is that serious? After deciding our course of action and selecting those to carry it out, we sat and waited to hear the fate of Chris' sister. Finally, after 3 days of suspense, she was found in one of the 60 schoolyards. She had been raped, repeatedly stabbed numerous of times, and left for dead. Oh no, bro, you California niggas is out of control. That's a female, man. Jesus. Fortunately, she lived. That very night, our selected crew was sent to I'm on 8 Trey side now. Was sent out to complete its first, but not last, extra vicious act of warfare. Combing the streets of the 60s hood in a desperate attempt to find one of their shooters. The crew drove block after block, stopping civilians to ask the whereabouts of such notables. Petey Whack, Poochie, Kid Rock, Mumbles, or Snoop Dogg. Their elite crew of shooters. Finding none of them around, they settled for an up-and-coming ghetto star. They seized him, beat him into submission, and chopped off both of his arms at the elbow with machetes. What the fuck? One arm was taken and the other arm was discarded down the street. Later that night, we prayed, we partied, and had a good time. The arm was taken. What the fuck? What was the arm did? The arm was taken and was brought to the meeting as a proof of completion. There was no further kidnapping, and our war plotted on an ordinary fashion after this. During the ensuing investigation, the police department frustration arose, not as a result of the act per se, but from the inability to find the victim's other limb. We learned from this there was a deterrent to certain acts. We had quite possibly laid down a rule then that certain things just wouldn't be tolerated. I'm gonna leave this sick shit right here, man. So let's talk about what happened. This nigga Monster Kody, alright, he went on the drill. He shot some 60s the last episode. He get locked up for that. But it's another shooting that somebody else did, and they kept trying to lock him up with Sidewinder for shooting DC. He beat that case after having a stern talking to with his mama, telling him how she want him to stop banging He get out of jail. He go shoot some more niggas. His homeboy sister get kidnapped. And in retaliation, they go get a 60 and chop his arm off. This is crazy ass book right here, man. Y'all like and subscribe, man. I don't know what to say. Y'all just let me know y'all want another episode of Monster Kody, man. Peace.